Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We're here at Manazoa Brewing, and this is your Saturday Evening Post Week in Review. I am Chris Wakefield. I'm the marketing manager at the Saturday Evening Post.
I'm Nick Gilmore. I'm a staff writer.
I'm Troy Brownfield, also a staff writer.
We're going to recap the week that was online at the Saturday Evening Post. First thing is first, we continue to look back on 100 years ago, the 1918 Espionage Act here in America, which restricted free speech, and some people end up getting in trouble for it. Troy, what do you know about the 1918 Espionage Act?
Well, this is during wartime that this begins to be enacted. By 18, it's wrapping up. But obviously, you have this undercurrent of what they considered un-American activities, people sharing and distributing information, and also people speaking out against the government. And so they wanted to be able to crack down on that.
The thought being that if you spoke out during wartime, you were hurting the war cause, right? And Eugene Debs
was convicted, right?
Right. The Supreme Court rules that, in fact, it is constitutional and you can be punished for it. There's a piece online at SaturdayEveningPost.com from our own archivist, Jeff Nielsen, talking more about the Espionage Act. Troy, a piece you recently wrote, Stormy Weather, 75 years ago, a great musical. Talk to us about this film.
Well, Stormy Weather and Cabin in the Sky, which came out the same year, are both really notable for being musicals with an almost entirely African-American cast. It's very unusual at the time. They're both really highly regarded. Cabin in the Sky came out first, but Stormy Weather comes out later in the year, and it's headlined by just like a murderer's row of legendary talent.
Right.
You've got Lena Horne, Cab Calloway, the Nicholas brothers, who might not be as well known now, but were famous dancers and also cinematic dancers.
You will see videos today around on Facebook of the Nicholas brothers dancing, including the clip from this film, from Stormy Weather.
Yeah, it's a kind of a big showstopper. Cab Calloway is leading his orchestra, and he sings Jump and Jive. And the Nicholas brothers do a dance that goes upstairs, across instruments, across tables.
It's nuts.
It's incredibly athletic. These guys could go, jump off of partitions, maybe 6-8 feet off the floor, land in the splits, pop up, keep going.
Have you seen these dancers?
Incredibly athletic.
I'm familiar with the clip that you're talking about. But,
It's made its way around.
Yeah, the Stormy Weather is a new musical for me.
Yeah, and then
It's amazing.
Yeah, Lena Horne is fantastic. 1943, she is stunning. Her voice is incredible.
Right.
And Bill Bojangles Robinson, who's well known for musicals and dancing prior to that, appeared with Shirley Temple in movies. He's the main character. This is based on his life, a kind of fictionalized version. Lena Horne plays a fictitious kind of romantic lead, and it did really well. It was considered a very big hit at the time, and it's enshrined in the National Registry of Film by the Library of Congress.
And of course, if you've seen the original Blues Brothers, you know who Cab Calloway is.
Absolutely.
He has a big part in that film, and it's an amazing, amazing talent from that age. Again, that's online over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. Another piece that you've done is part of your summer road trip series, focusing on wine that's being produced in the Midwest. Of course, we know wine in Southern California and in France and Spain, but can people in Michigan grow their own wine and sell it?
Yeah, and this is something that's been happening. Yes, Chris, they can. And this is something that's been really picking up steam in the last 20 years is wineries in the Midwest. Now, there are different types of grapes that you need to grow. Usually, or that you can grow successfully if you're going to grow in the Midwest. The Norton grape is a big one for red. Chambourcin, and probably not going to be able to grow Pinot Noir from everything that I've read. But, so it's a little bit different. A lot of wineries, are kind of are catering to some different tastes that people have in the Midwest. But there's been a pretty big explosion of really serious winemaking.
Really?
Yeah, from Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, the Luss Hills in the west of Iowa. They have a lot of wineries there. Here in Indiana and the Uplands.
Easily Upland. Buck Creek is tons. Are you a big wine drinker?
Not as much, but you know, I do every once.
Do you
in a while.
prefer white or red?
More white.
More of a white. Okay. All right. Does it taste different? Could a experienced sommelier like this is from California or this is from Indiana? Is it that different of a taste or?
I'm sure an experienced sommelier could do that. I
Okay.
couldn't.
Okay, so are you not an experienced?
I'm not a sommelier. I'm
Okay.
not a level 1. I'm a level 0
Okay.
sommelier.
You're a
I've been to my
dabbler.
fair share of wine tastings, but
Yeah, I mean it's fun. Yeah.
yeah, it's neat to see that kind of culture and that fandom expand outside of Southern California, and the wider it becomes, the more localized your product can be, and you can get locally grown and produced wine.
Yeah.
And I don't see a bad side to that. I'm sure someone will find
I
a
don't
bad
see a
side
bad
to that.
side to drinking wine.
Exactly. Troy, you recently wrote a piece about Iron Butterfly, who
right.
many of us who are maybe younger thought you probably misspelled Iron Maiden. Who's Iron Butterfly?
Well, this piece was about the fact that Iron Butterfly brought metal to the charts 50 years ago. Iron Butterfly was a San Diego band. They put out 2 albums in 1968. One of them contained Inagata Vita, which the story of that is kind of legendary. They were recording, and the lead singer was so messed up on a variety of things. Different stories attribute it to different stuff, but he was having a hard
Wine.
time pronouncing the words. We'll say wine, Midwestern wine. He was having a hard time pronouncing the lyrics, which were "In the Garden of Eden," and he just kept saying "In a Garden of Eden." And the other guys loved it. They thought it was
Right.
great. It was that kind of mystic thing, and I mean, you know the song. It's got that heavy bottom, the Hammond organ, and all these things that became staples. It was 17 minutes. They cut a version that was 3 for the radio.
17 minutes.
Yes, and that version, it cracks the charts at last week in 1968 at like number 177. Eventually makes the top 10. The album is a huge seller. It sold millions of copies historically, but what it does is it breaks the door down. And a number of bands that were forming that year, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and so forth,
Right.
follow in the wake that there's an acceptance. A lot of people called it acid rock and stuff from Hendrix and everything, but it really,
Right.
68 is also the year that Steppenwolf invokes the phrase heavy metal thunder in Born to Be Wild. And so it wasn't too long between people started making the association that Black Sabbath came from a steel town like Birmingham and all this, that it started being called heavy metal.
Now it's time for my favorite segment of the week. It's called Don't At Me. Things that are just bugging us, getting on our nerves. That this is my opinion, don't at me. Mine's going to go to the dog behind me that keeps barking. Troy, what's your don't at me about this week?
Okay, Forbes ran a piece by an economics professor who I will not dignify by naming that said that public libraries should be replaced by Amazon. And, forget this guy. Public libraries provide so many services to the community. They have kids' story time hours. Some people, it's the only place that they have to use a computer to look for a job. They've really, made a commitment in a lot of different towns to providing classes for kids. Clubs meet there, associations meet there. And, it's easy if you're kind of isolated, like this guy appears to be, to forget what the function of a library serves in a community. But they're still very important. And it seems like every few years somebody comes along with us, do we still really need libraries? Yes. Yes, we still really need libraries.
Okay. Nick, what's in your craw?
So, I've heard this kind of pervasive opinion coming probably mostly from older people, baby boomers, I would imagine,
Careful.
maybe some Generation X, and that pop music isn't what it used to be. That it's degraded, that it's, repetitive anymore, and the industry has killed it, millennials have killed it, who knows. And this is actually a preview of the next issue, because in the contrarian section of our next issue, I actually wrote about pop music, and that I think there's a lot of selective memory going on as far as pop music of the 60s and 50s, 60s, and 70s is concerned. There's a lot of bad pop music from that era. And there's a lot of good pop music from now. So I'm going to say I like current pop music.
Wow. What's your favorite decade of music?
Now.
Now.
Right now.
What's yours?
The 2010s.
Man, it is hard. I think one of the greatest individual musical years of all time is 1987, which I should write an article about. But, it was a breakthrough year for a lot of bands. A lot of bands recorded seminal albums. Guns N' Roses records Appetite for Destruction. You've got the Pixies, REM, U2. All
Purple
these
Rain in 87?
84.
84? Okay.
Yeah, but
Same thing.
I think, I hate to be that guy, but I've always listened to a lot of stuff. My dad introduced me to 60s music when I was a kid. Then I found, 80s new wave, 80s metals over that. Like, all these things shape my taste. I feel like I listen to a lot of stuff. I think that there's a lot of great pop music being made by people like Sia and, a lot of other artists are doing really good and interesting stuff. But I think that it does happen that you find yourself, as you get older, kind of calcifying.
Right.
That you don't actively seek out new stuff, and then it becomes more of a comfort thing than a challenge thing.
It's a literal neurological phenomenon.
Right. What's your favorite Cardi B song?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't forget,
BoJack Yellow.
You can just.
What was it?
BoJack Yellow?
Bodak.
Oh, Bodak Yellow.
Bodak Yellow.
I don't know any of
You're
those songs,
close.
so.
BoJack Yellow.
Don't forget, you can.
BoJack Horseman. Bodak Yellow.
You can subscribe to
Cut
the
that.
Saturday Evening Post online. SaturdayEveningPost.com/subscribe. A 1-year subscription gets you 6 new issues of a Saturday Evening Post delivered to your home every other month. 6 issues, $15. SaturdayEveningPost.com/subscribe. You can find us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Saturday Evening Post. We're posting new content, new articles from these guys every single week. New stuff being produced by us all the time. Where can we find you on Twitter, Nick?
I am Darwin Jr. with a Y.
At Troy Brownfield, also CardiB.com.
And you can find me online at Wakefield Report. That's all we have for this week. We'll see you all next Friday.